Right, so today we're going to be doing a LS430 2000 to 2003. That's a 3UZ-FE VVT-i, and this one is going into a Toyota Altezza. So let's get into it. Right, so as discussed, this is going to be an LS430 2000 to 2003. That's a 3UZ-FE VVT-i. It's going into a Toyota Altezza and it's running the J160 6-speed manual gearbox. Okay, so the test is going to be broken up into two major sections. The first one is going to be, we're going to go through the layout of the entire harness, show you where everything plugs in so the customer Kevin can know what to do when he gets it on his side. So that's going to be just making our way around the harness like that. Second part is going to be the testing, and we do two sections of the testing, and that is basically one with just the ignition on. We're going to test a couple of things, and then we're going to get the actual engine running and do a couple of tests there as well. So to start off with, we're going to do the layout, and firstly I'm going to start inside the ECU box over here. So first of all, you'll notice that the 3UZ ECUs are the same as like a 2001 onwards IS300. They are like what I call a wedge shape. This is an IS200 half cut, so effectively it's got the same box as an IS200 ECU, which is the same box in your case, Kevin, as what you would have on your Altezza. Now what you'll notice is ECU doesn't fit. It's got this lip in here. Okay, so you have two options. Number one, you can grind this lip away and then this ECU will slip straight in. If you are going to do that, remove the two screws and lift out the PCB board, because obviously you don't want all the heat you're going to generate here, you don't want that passing onto the PCB board. And you can grind that all away, put the PCB back in, slide it in. Option two, as I said, the 2001 onwards IS300, and I think in America the GS300 as well, they had the same shape wedge. Okay, if you can get your hands on one of those ECU boxes, they bolt directly in and this ECU will slide straight in without any modifications. Okay, so those are your two options there in regards to getting it to fit. Now then, plugs on the ECU, you've got 1, 2, 3 over there, and they're the mains one that go into your engine harness over there, as you can see. Then you've got these two over here, and they are what I refer to as the body ECU plugs, and those ones have an adaption, so you've got this little sort of resin patch harness here, and they are going to then plug into your 22 and 28 pin plug that is left behind in your ECU box of your Altezza. Now you'll notice I've got a little patch harness in between. That's because an IS200 and an Altezza RS200 have different wiring, so I have to adapt it for our test purposes over here. So obviously in your case, your two plugs would just plug directly into there. All right, coming around to the body section now. There's only three plugs. You've got this one over here, which is a white one, which will go into your white one, Kevin. You've got this one over here, which is a gray, which should be a gray one, but in this case it's a white one because we use your 3UZ one. And that's going to go into the gray section over there. And then again, we reuse one from your 3UZ harness, and that's going to go into your blue section plug over there. So those are the three body plugs that plug in. These are junctions, and they're going to tuck down inside here. You could probably take this white one and slide it into this lock over here. All right, perfectly fine to do that, and then you can tuck the gray one underneath that one and put this one in there. Okay, so that's your entire ECU box section. So really, really nice and simple, nothing major. Just plug in your ECU, plug in your three body plugs, tuck these away, and you are done. Then you'll see you've got like a U grommet section over here, and that's obviously going to go into there. Obviously we can't do that because the engine is much higher than it would be in your car, but that's going to go straight into there, and that's going to put seat nicely in there, and then you've got a lid's going to go on top, and everything's going to be sealed in. From here, it's going to come straight up to the engine. You're going to get to your first sort of breakout point, if you will. This piece of plastic is mounted with a bolt there and mounted with a bolt there. Okay. Coming out here, you're going to have injector 1 and coil 1. So remember, you always look at the engine from behind. So this is the left bank or bank 1. That is the right bank or bank 2. And you've got cylinder 1, 3, 5, and 7 over here. 2, 4, 6, and 8 over there. So just to, as I go through, I'm going to say it's injector 1, blah, 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 etc. So just so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so you've got injector 1 and you've got coil 1 over there. So that goes in there. What we're going to do is we're going to come out here at the front here. So first thing is you've got your oil control valve over here. So that's going to plug into your oil control valve over there. You're going to have your TPS for your throttle body. So that's going to plug straight into there. You're then going to come down and you'll see there's a little clip over here that you can attach the harness to there to keep it nice and firm in place. And at that point, it's going to break out and it's going to go over to your front cam sensor. Okay, so that plugs directly into there. And then you'll see here, you should have two little holes here. There'll be little plastic clips in there, and that's going to then hold the harness down over there to keep it out of the way of everything else. Once you come down here, then it's going to break into three sections. First one is your AC. Okay, now you've got an AC pump, so that's going to work absolutely fine. You can plug that straight in. For everybody else, just remember that what you need to do is if you've got an LS430 pump, it relied on a separate solenoid on the back to vary the speed of the pump. Obviously, that's not controlled by the ECU, that's controlled by a separate aircon ECU. So if you do have an LS and any one of our harnesses, just remember you need to replace the pump with either GS430 aircon pump, SC430 aircon pump is the same, and then you also have the first generation 1UZ VVT-i, so like a GS, if you're in the States, GS400 has the same pump, and also an LS400 from 98 to 2000. Those pumps will all work, and this will plug straight in there for you, no problem. All right, so coming down here and through this little hole over here, and then down this little section over there, if you can see, remember your aircon pump's going to be here, so you can also tuck it behind there like that. You're going to come down, and first thing you're going to get is your crank sensor. Okay, so that plugs directly into there. All right, if you haven't, it's always advisable to try and take this out and give it a good clean. The timing belt can shed metal filings, and they sort of build up on the crank sensor. It is a variable reluctance sensor, so it is magnetic, so it does attract all of those pieces. So always worthwhile popping that out and giving it a bit of a clean before you put it back in again. All right, while you're here, one of those things. Okay, then you've got your oil pressure. Okay, now as this is going into an Altezza RS200, right, this is going to go to an oil pressure sensor. So Kevin, do remember that on your LS, or sorry, on your SC430 engine that you've got, you have an oil pressure switch. Now it's not going to be in this position because this is an LS430, it's going to be behind here. What you need to do is you need to replace the switch with the oil pressure sensor from your Altezza 3SGE engine. The plug is exactly the same, so you don't need to change anything. You just need to put that sensor in, and that's gonna then mean that your oil pressure gauge on your dash is going to work as per normal. Okay, so do just remember that. It's the same oil pressure sensor that came, I think, on the Land Cruiser. Now I'm talking sort of European, so I'm guessing in America there might have been some other models, maybe like the Lexus GX470 or something like that. They might have also had that particular oil pressure sensor in case you need to find another one. Right, so that's pretty much everything down here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pop back up here and we're going to start making our way along there. Right, so moving along here, it's going to give me a small little section over there, then you're going to get into another piece of plastic. That bolts down over there and over there, okay? And coming out of here, you've got 3 different sections coming out here. They are routed where they need to be, so you can't plug it in the wrong place. But the first section is going to be injector 3 and coil 3, and then your VVL cam sensor, or variable valve timing left cam sensor. So remember, the 3UZ and the 1UZ, they have 3 cam sensors. They have 1 on each inlet cam, and they have 1 at the front. So these are monitoring the cam in terms of VVT, how the degree of advance or retard of the cams. That one's measuring just for like fully sequential ignition and injection to say where the engine is. Okay, so moving along here, your next breakout point, you're going to have injector 5, coil 5, sorry, and then in your case, a noise filter, which you're going to bolt into a noise filter, which you should have bolted onto your engine on the top here. Going down to the back here, you're then going to have injector 7 and coil 7, and then that's going to complete this side of the engine over here. And then you're going to have a section popping down the back here, and then you're going to end up in your back piece of plastic here, and that goes around the back of the engine. Now that has 2 mounting points. You've got this one over here, and you've got that one over there. Okay, unfortunately, Kevin, yours has broken free, and we don't have a replacement for these, so you can mount it on just this one over here, but for everyone else, you should have a mounting point there and a mounting point there. All right. Now then, coming down to the bottom here, you're going to see we've got one of our earth straps coming out here. So that's that one over there. So it's a little M6 bolt that goes in there. That's your first earth strap that's going to be from the engine harness. And then coming down here, we've got our gearbox harness, which pops up and goes all the way around over there. So there's your reverse switch, popping around, and there's your speed sensor. Okay. Then the next one that's coming out of here is going to be your Lambda sensor for the left bank. So these are the main ones. These are the only ones that are left in the programming of the ECU. Obviously, we've removed, or Brandon at Quantum has removed the secondary Lambda sensors. So they are no longer viable, and you don't need to connect them at all. Okay, so that's that section over there. Popping up to the section over here. Now what we've done is we've remade your starter knock harness. So that is all brand new. And if you wait to the end, you'll see photos of that all installed. What we've done as well is we've changed this plug at the back to a DTM plug, so that if you ever need to remake the section over here, it's a nice easy plug that you can easily get hold of, and you can remake an entire bottom section without having to get all Toyota proprietary plugs. Right, so that's that over there. Obviously I can't do any more from this side. I'm going to flick over the other side over there, but just a reminder, you've got your main power cable that comes out of here as well, and that's going to go onto your battery. All right, so now that that's done, I'm going to pop around the other side quickly. Right, so still on the back piece of plastic here, we're going to come along to here, and there's a little breakout section over here, and it's going to go to your other earth strap. Again, M6 bolts on there. Do remember, guys, you do have different holes in here. On this side, you've only got one other hole. On that side, you've actually got two over there. Okay, here's a legacy item. The one you said VVT-i's had an M8 ring terminal for their earth, so they bolted further down over there. On the 3UZs, it uses the smaller M6 hole over there. Okay, so again, earth strap over there. In your case, we've now got your pedal plug coming out here. That plugs straight in. In your case, we'll go around in through where your accelerator cable used to go through there, and then it'll plug into your pedal. So this is your pedal cable, so obviously testing everything with all of your stuff to make sure it works 100%. Right, so now we come into the end of the back plastic over here. And the first thing that pops out over here on this section is going to be injector 8 and coil 8. Then it's going to run up slightly, and you're going to have three things breaking out over here, and that's going to be injector 6, coil 6, and then your ACIS plug. That's for your ACIS system that goes underneath there. All right, so that's a completely separate harness from your starter knock harness. That one should remain on your engine. You're just going to plug that straight in. Moving along, you're going to have another breakout over here, and that's going to be your cam sensor, your VVR, or variable valve timing right bank cam sensor. And you're going to have injector 4, you're going to have coil 4, and then you're also going to have your little noise filter. So you should have one of these on this side as well on the other side there. All right, then we're going to move a little bit more forward. We're going to break out at the front here. There's going to be quite a few things coming out here. So first of all, you've got injector 2, you've got coil 2, you're then going to have your oil control valve for the right bank. You're then also going to have your coolant temp sensor down at the bottom here that's going to plug in. And then you're going to have your drive-by-wire motor. So that's your positive and negative for your drive-by-wire motor, and that plugs in the top over there. All right, the last section that comes out over here is going to be your mass airflow sensor. All right, so again, just make sure you got the correct one. They all run little small ones like that. All right, so just make sure you got the correct one. All right, then the harness is going to come down all the way over here, and then it's going to break out into three sections, which I'm going to go through now. So first of all, you've got your alternator plug, so that plugs straight into the back of your alternator. Now in this case, we've got the sort of rear / mid sump, if you want to call it that, from the LS430. You've got the front sump, so there's your oil level switch, oil level sensor is going to plug straight into there. And then last but not least, down at the bottom here, there's your Lambda plug over there. So do remember with the 3UZs, your Lambda on the right bank is a long harness to the plug, and your Lambda on the left bank is a short one. Do remember they have different wiring, so you can't just buy a long one and put it on the other side. When you plug it in, you're going to get an error. Okay, so just make sure you have the correct Lambda sensors for each side. All right, that's on a 3UZ, 1UZ VVT-i, both the same sensor, both short. They just made the harness a bit longer. So they obviously decided that it was better to run a longer one on the 3UZ when they upgraded to that. Right, so that's pretty much everything in terms of the layout of the harness. Hopefully, Kevin, that's relatively straightforward. Just remember, it goes in a U shape. You're just going to drop it on, bolt all the plastics down, and you can start plugging everything in as you go. Right, so in terms of us, that's the layout done now. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the thing started up. We're going to get a little bit of temperature in it so we can obviously see the temperature gauge working when we do part of the tests. But I'm going to do that now, and we'll be back with you guys in a second. All right, see you now. Right, so now we're back for the actual testing of the harness in terms of actually running the engine and obviously testing a bunch of the instruments and stuff like that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to be split into two sections. Number one, we're just going to turn the ignition on. We're going to carry out a bunch of tests over there with the diagnostic machine. Then we're going to move on to actually starting the engine and carrying out all of those tests. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of all the tests that we're going to do. Then I'll start on those ones and then we'll move on to the running one, but I'll do a quick recap before we do the running one. So because it's a plug and play Toyota Altezza, there's a few extra things we have to test over a normal harness. So number one is the ambient temperature. That means on the inside of the vehicle, the climate control displays the outside temperature. So we're going to make sure that that's working because that's read by the ECU and transmitted via MPX. Check engine light, straightforward. We just want to make sure we get a check engine light appearing on the dash. Charge light, again, we just want to make sure the battery light appears on there. And obviously when we start the car, the check engine light and the battery light are going to go out so we know that they're working as they should. Oil pressure, in our case, not applicable. Unfortunately, we don't have an Altezza cluster and we don't have an Altezza pressure sensor. So obviously I can't physically show you those working. I do apologize about that, but obviously I'm not able to find an Altezza cluster for a reasonable price just for testing purposes for that one. All right, so then we're going to go over to reverse. So what we're going to do is we're going to bridge the reverse switch, exactly like what your gearbox will do, and then we'll get the obligatory beep, beep, beep from the dash like it's a truck. Right, then we're going to test the speedo. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our little device to force feed a speed signal into the dash, and that makes sure then that the speed plug is all 3 wires are correct. So we've got our 12 volts, we've got our ground, and we've got our signal all correct. Okay, OBD2 test. That's just simple. We just want to make sure that this OBD2 machine, which is plugged into the OBD2 plug that's inside the car, communicates with the ECU and picks it up correctly. So that's what we're going to be testing there. Then we're going to stay with the machine and we're going to test the fuel pump. All right. So obviously with the Toyota, I do have a nice video explaining how the fuel pump system works. So if you guys want to watch that, I'll put a link up in the top there for you and you can go watch that at a much more detailed view. So I'm not going to go through all of those information here now. AC clutch, so we're testing 2 things with the AC. We're testing number 1, that the ECU is outputting a signal to turn on the magnetic clutch relay. Number 2, we're making sure that when we press the AC button in the car, that the ECU sees the signal, acknowledges it, and says, now we need the AC on. Okay, and then last of that, we're going to test the brake switch. So we want to make sure that when you press the brakes, that obviously the machine is picking it up and we'll be able to see that on our diagnostic machine. Okay, so what we do is we use a little bit of a relay. I don't know if you saw it over there in the ECU box, and that then takes care of the 4-wire system that would usually be used on the 3UZ ECUs. Okay, right, so that's that with just the ignition on. In terms of running the engine, it's going to be the starter circuit, so just make sure when we turn the key and move to start position, that works. ACIS, that's your acoustic control induction system. It's this little valve at the back here. We're going to make sure that pops down as soon as we start the engine. I do have a good video on the ACIS system. I'll put a link up in the top there. It goes into great detail. I pull the whole intake in half so you guys can see exactly what it looks like underneath there, and it explains exactly what it does and how it works. All right. Drive-by-wire test, relatively simple. 3UZ is a complete drive-by-wire system. If I rev this pedal, the engine must rev, and then I know everything is working exactly as it should do. So that's a nice and easy test there. Then the oil control valve test. So what are we doing? We're basically using the diagnostic machine, and what it's going to do is it's going to retard and advance the cam, so it's going to sound like a really lumpy cammed engine when I do it, and we do bank 1 and then we do bank 2, sorry, bank 1 and then we do bank 2 individually, so you can see that they're both working. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to pop off each injector one by one on this side and on the other side. And what we're looking for is it must misfire when we undo the injector. That shows us that all the cylinders are firing correctly. Okay, so just a word of warning in advance. I haven't actually clipped all these injector plugs on. So if I do start it up and it starts misfiring and you see me fiddling around, what I'm doing, I'm just trying to push it down enough so it makes contact. All right, I can't undo them physically single-handedly, so I leave them all not completely plugged in. All right, so tacho. We're going to be looking for the tacho signal. Now, bearing in mind, an Altezza was a 4-cylinder engine, or specifically the RS200 had the 3 SGE. So we don't need to use a tacho converter for these, simply because they're already putting out a 4-cylinder signal. So 3UZs and 1UZ VVT-Is, they put out a 4-cylinder signal. So when you're swapping them into an Altezza, you don't need the tacho converter. When you're swapping into an IS200 or an IS300, or even in the Altezza with the AS200 that had the 1G 6-cylinder in, you would need to convert from a 4-cylinder to a 6-cylinder. So just bear that in mind, guys. So when you look at the tacho, it's going to look off, but that's because we're giving it a 4-cylinder signal when it's looking for a 6-cylinder signal. Right, then we're going to go to the coolant temp. So what we want to see, because obviously one of the major things as part of the remap is we change the MPX communication so that this dash and the Altezza and the IS100 dash can understand it, and then they will display the coolant temperature sensor. Okay, and then lastly, diagnostics. And what I mean by that is we're going to go in, we're going to check that we've got no codes. Okay, because obviously this is a manual. The ECU has been remapped by our colleague in California at Quantum Auto, that's Brandon Elsner. So we want to make sure that obviously we get no codes for the automatic gearbox. We're getting no codes for secondary Lambda sensors, no codes for any evap sort of stuff like that. And that we're going to confirm after we've run it. So I leave it powered on. I do a couple of runs just to make sure that no codes pop up on there. Okay, so those are all the tests that we're going to do. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to start with a test at the top, but just requires the ignition on. So as it's plug and play, you're going to take your key, you're going to put it in your car, you're going to flick it on. Right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the ambient temperature. That's the first one. So when we come here, we can see 18 degrees. Now obviously, depending on where you are in the world, it might be Fahrenheit, but just making sure that that is displaying an actual temperature and not an error or just two dotted lines, because that means it's got no signal. So we're happy with that. Check engine light, that fires straight up, so super happy with that. Charge light, we've got that in the corner there, so we know that works. Again, we'll come back to it as part of the tacho and coolant, and we'll make sure that all of those lights are off and that they are working as they should do. Right, now I'm going to pop around over here. Before I do that, I'm going to face the cluster that way, because we're going to be doing the speed test, and obviously you guys want to see that actually working. Right, okay. So what I need now is my little wire. So I do apologize, it's just popped down the side here. Right, so as I said, all I'm literally going to do is I'm going to bridge the reverse switch, and that's then going to cause the car to activate reverse, and we're going to hear the annoying beep. So 1, 2, 3. Right, so I've just bridged that, which is what your gearbox does. And we can hear the beeping. I'm going to take it off. There you go, job done. Right, so that's working exactly as it should. As soon as you plug into the gearbox and stick it in reverse, your reverse lights will come on, and then your dash will do all of the beeping stuff. Okay, so let's move on to the speedo, which is the next one. So again, as per usual, if you guys watch loads of my videos, same old system. It's just a little device that's actually one of the tacho correctors. We're just using it to test the signal. So obviously, because it's a Hall effect sensor, we've got 12 volts, we've got ground, and then we've got signal. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the 12 volts and the ground for the device in there. You can see that's flashing away now. So I know the 12 volts and the ground are working okay. I'm just going to put it into a test mode, because obviously normally it just converts the signal. So I'm going to disconnect the ground, pop it into there. You can see the flashing's gone all different. And then all I am going to do now is provide the signal to here. Let's see if I can do it single-handedly. So you can see I'm popping that in there, and as I do, you can see the speedo is working. Okay, so super happy with that. So now I know all the way to the actual terminals of the plug, all the crimps are correct, everything is working 100% as you would expect it to. Little tip with the speed sensors, obviously a lot of times when you guys are doing swaps, what I tend to come across is I think they're getting a bit bashed. So what I normally say to guys is, if you get it all in and for some reason your speedo is not working, the first test that I would normally do is, if you've got a ramp, get it up on the ramp, unplug the gearbox speed sensor, unbolt it and take it out, okay? Get a buddy to sit inside the car with the ignition on, exactly like you see I've done here, tape it to a drill and then spin the speed sensor, okay? If you get a speed then appearing on your dash, then you know that there's something wrong inside the gearbox where the speed sensor communicates. If you get nothing on the dash, then more than likely there's a problem with the speed sensor. That's one quick, easy way just to figure out what is the issue in this system over there. So we know currently that as long as that plug is getting the correct signals, should be working absolutely fine. And that's our test. Just put on a drill and just spin it and you'll get a speed popping up on your dash there. Okay, just a little hint and tip for you guys. Right, so let's pop back over and let's see what we're going to be testing next. So after speedo, we're going to do the OBD2 test. All right, so that's nice and simple. Okay, so now we have got, so I do apologize. So I'm already connected. You can see we've got temperature displaying there. We've got 50 degrees. You can also actually see the coolant temp has already moved off the needle there. Hopefully you can see that. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into function. I'm going to go into system select just so you can see that it picks up the ECU correctly. So there it is, LS430. Okay, we're going to go back into the powertrain over there. And that's going to allow us to do all the tests that we're going to carry out. So the first test that we're going to do is the fuel pump. Okay, so you can see I've got fuel pump, relay, fuel pump. If you don't know why there's two of them, watch that video I put earlier. That explains that in great detail. So obviously we're going to test the fuel pump. We're going to pop in over there. I'm going to keep quiet for this. I'm going to press the little arrow. When I do that, you're going to hear the relay click and you're going to hear the pump working, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so hopefully you heard that. And obviously the fuel pump is working as we expect it to. Now we're going to pop over to the AC clutch. So we're going to go back into the same active test. And you're going to see at the top here, I've got AC magnetic clutch relay. So that's the test we're going to pop into now. Same as the fuel pump, I'm going to keep quiet. I'm going to move it over to the other side and you're going to hear the AC magnetic clutch relay pop on. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. Okay, so we know that works 100%. For the second test, which is the AC request signal, that's what comes from inside the vehicle. We're going to go to the live data. We're going to scroll down until we see AC signal. Right, okay, now I've got that over there. I'm going to have to take the OBD2 machine with me in this particular case. Okay, so hopefully you're going to be able to see. But basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to press the AC button on and I'm going to press it off. And what we're looking for is there. Sorry, let me just see if I can get in there and you can see it. So you can see AC signal there. I'm going to press the button and that turns on. I'm going to press the button and that turns off. Fantastic. Okay. Right, so we know the AC signal and the AC magnetic clutch relay are working as expected, and it is being controlled via the ECU itself. All right, so brake switch now. I'm gonna have to get a little bit creative because obviously I've unfortunately cut the brake switch out of this vehicle over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop over there. I'm gonna make sure that we do have our stop light switch over here active. So you can see that at the moment we've got stop light switch over there and it's saying that it is off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop around here and I'm going to imitate the 12 volts that you would get from the brake switch. So I'm doing that in the plug here according to the standard wires. And as I do that, okay, so let's just, there you go, you can hear our little relay clicking that we've got in there. So Kevin is going to tuck underneath that white frame as well. Right, so now I'm going to come to stop light switch. Sorry, it reflects off of the screen so badly. So there's our stop light switch and now it is displaying as on where it was off. And then I'm going to pop over here, pop that out. You can hear the relay clicking away there, turning off. And now you can see stop light switch is now off. All right, so that's fantastic. Okay, so that's all the tests we're going to carry out with the engine not running. I'm just going to pause for a second and I'll be back and then we're going to do the running of the engine. So bear with me and we'll see you in a second. Bye-bye. Right guys, so we're back and what we're going to be doing now is obviously all the tests with the engine running itself. Now it's been a while since we've last gone through it, so I'm going to quickly run through it again. So first off, starter circuit, that's just testing that the engine starts with the key like it should do. ACIS, so we're making sure this little valve goes down as soon as we start it up, so we'll pop over with the camera and we'll check that out. Drive-by-wire test, I'm literally just going to rev the pedal. You can actually hear the throttle working already. Yeah, that's another little thing as well. When you saw me turn the ignition on, you don't hear this buzz. Right, perfectly normal. It'll start buzzing the moment it takes movement on the pedal, all right, but it'll be silent before that, okay? Oil control valve, we're going to pop back to the machine. We're going to test those two, bank 1 and bank 2. Injectors, we're going to pop each one out one by one on all 8 cylinders, make sure it's doing that. Tacho, we're going to make sure we're getting a signal through here and the rev counter's going up and down. Coolant temp, we kind of already seen it, but we'll see it go up obviously as we carry out the test because it'll get hotter. And then obviously we'll move into the diagnostics and make sure that obviously there's no codes related to anything that's missing, like the gearbox or the secondary lambdas, and there should be 0 codes because everything is wired up that needs to run correctly and have our check engine light operators per normal. So first thing I'm going to do, put my ear defenders on. Okay. Right, so I'm going to carry on talking because the GoPro does manage to pick up my voice even over the engine noise. So again, nice and simple, as it's a plug and play, we're just going to start the engine. So 1, 2, 3. Right, so there you go. Luckily, all the engines are playing ball, so they're all staying on and firing as they should. So let's move over to here. You can see that's gone down, so we're super happy with that. Quickly rev the engine. Super happy with that. Right, let's go to oil control valve test. We're going to go to active test. VVT control bank 1. Pop into there. Voila. Okay, we're going to go into active test. We're going to go into bank 2. We're going to enter. Engine running really lumpy over there. Go back to data list. Right, so we've done the oil control valve. Let's move on to the injector. So we're going to start here at the front. So we've got injector 2, injector 4, injector 6, 7, injector 5, injector 3, and now we're going to have injector 1. Fantastic. Right, so now we're going to look at tacho. All good, and then obviously you can see the check engine light's gone out, the battery light has gone out, so we know that's working, and you can see the coolant temp has gone up since we've had the engine running. Okay, and obviously we've got no check engine light over there. Just going to confirm by going into trouble codes, and you'll see we've got 0 codes in there, 0 pending. Right, so flick that off, take my ear defenders off. Right, so really straightforward, everything is working exactly as we would expect it to. All the tested parts flying colors. So Kevin, it should be a really simple process of you just getting it in, plugging it in, and away you go. Just remember on your side, apart from the harness, a couple of things you got to remember. Number 1, your main power cable. So you want to put that straight to the positive terminal of the battery. Right, number 2 is your alternator. So you're going to have to make a cable, if you don't have one, that runs from the main stud of the alternator over here, runs along the subframe underneath the vehicle. Okay, and that is going to pop up, and that is going to bolt straight into your fuse box there. Okay, that's the best place to put it because it is actually fuse protected. There's your 120 amp alternator fuse in there. Sorry, it's that white one over there, not the yellow one. So that is always the best place to put your alternator cable. All right. Okay, so Kevin, hopefully that's really nice and simple. Hopefully when you get it to your side, it's just drop it on and away you go. Again, if there's anything you have, please let us know. We do have a lot of videos. If you are running into issues, have a lot of videos to help guys with diagnostics and checking things out. Number 1 rule about this is check the codes, okay? Now you will need a diagnostic machine with this. Unfortunately, the 3UZs, or even a 1UZ VVT-i, a USDM model one, does not give you the option of reading the check engine light flash code. So you do need a diagnostic machine, but you're always stabbing in the dark if you don't have one of those. So if you are having problems, guys, and Kevin, make sure if you've got a check engine light when you try to start it, something is wrong. You've got to get it looked at. You're going to need a machine to do that. So again, guys, that's your first port of call. Let the ECU tell you what's wrong with it. Don't start digging, throwing parts at it, thinking this and this and this. That's what a diagnostic machine is for. Not always very straightforward. I do appreciate that, but at least it gives you somewhere to look. All right. So what we're going to do now, Kevin, I know you're in a rush. You've got that show on July the 9th, so we're going to get this in a box, get it back to you in Canada, and hopefully you can get this straight in your car, get it fired up, and off you go. All right. If anybody has any questions, again, please feel free to fire us a comment down below. I try and get them as much as I can. I do appreciate I am only one person, unfortunately, so there's only 24 hours in a day, but I do try and get them as much as I can. My wife's answering the Facebook messages now, so again, you can try there, message that on our Facebook page at Phoenix Engine Management, and then hopefully someone should get back to you there. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for watching, Kevin. Hope it's been helpful, and the rest of you, we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.